All right, today we're talking columns, and basically we had somebody write in and say, hey, how do I put this thing back together? I don't know how to make all this operate, and I'm going to show you how that works today on our 1969 column we have here on the table. And I'm going to also talk a little bit about minutia and some of the things that you're going to run into when you're working on one of these types of columns. I'm going to tell you right now, there's not much available, and we'll talk about what isn't and is after the break.
Restoration of a classic Ford is a journey of discovery. Let Autocrafters help you with yours. We offer quality parts for Falcon, Fairlane, F-Series, Galaxy, Maverick, and Pinto. Contact us today.
So, first things first, what is an Aint? And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot more Aint than there is available for these columns. In 1968, Ford went away from the solid column with the spear shaft that would impale you in an accident to the collapsible steering column that you see sitting in front of me right here. Basically, a 1968 column is very similar to this 1969 one I have here in front of me. They all have this accordion-looking effect on the top of them, and in this section, this is actually a plastic. This is not metal, and inside of here are fluted pieces of metal that when you got into a front impact, the column, if you hit the column, would collapse. And inside of here, on this steering shaft, here you'll see that there is a smaller double D inside of a large double D. This is a 3/4 double D inside of a 1-inch double D tube, and they have plastic pins. There should be one right here and one right here, and what this does is whenever the column is hit hard enough, this shaft collapses down inside of here, theoretically saving you from a bad chest injury, almost like being stabbed by a spear because of the impact. You'll still get chucked, but with the pads that they put on the steering wheels back in 1968 and 69, and the way they designed the steering wheels, that was supposed to improve your chances of surviving an impact to the chest from the steering column, at least in theory. So I'm going to put this back in here and kind of go over some of the things that we've got going on. Now, what is available for these things? This. And this just recently became available through Autocrafters. You could not get one of these before except as a new old stock piece. Now Autocrafters has worked and they've got this one working now. So you've got a brand new piece available to replace your original neutral safety switch. The other piece that is available now are these pieces, grommets if you will, that your shaft assembly for the column shift goes down through. This is now available and you can get them out there in the market to basically fix any slop that you have in your shifter system. And I guess probably, if you want to say it, on a column shift car, the bulb's probably available. It may not be though, I don't know, but I would think that that bulb, you could probably get it. This is the indicator light for your column shift on the dash. Right now, the one thing that is available, one of the things that is available, I should say, is the turn signal switch. But I'm going to pull another one up that I got here so I can talk about it because it's a complete one. It has all the wires on it plus something that's a part of this that you don't get. This is a C8OA switch, which tells me that these are specific. They are for individual cars. The one that is available is a Mustang switch, and it does not have this wire here, which may be the only thing that separates it from the other switch. In other words, it may be that just having this is what makes the C8OA switch. That being the case, I'm not sure. I would say that if you get that one in, you may have an issue with the wires not mating up correctly for what you need to do on your Fairlane. There is one available, I'm just not sure it's the same. If you have your original switch and you do want to replace it with the one that you can get from Autocrafters that I'm putting below me here, make sure that you grab this off of yours. Whenever you take it all apart, take this sleeve and put it on because the new switch does not have the wires captive. Pull this one back up for that, like this one is. All these wires they're not glued together, but they're somehow surged together. And with that being the case, they fit down through the tunnel very nicely. This sleeve here will be good for keeping that way when you're trying to make it down through the metal sleeve that goes on the bottom side of the column to make this look a little bit neater. I'd like to see these be brought available again, but right now they are not. This one is an extra one that I got with the car, and it's busted. There should be a place to screw these into the back piece of this column and have it stay stable and sitting where it needs to, and they're just gone now. The screws have been broken off. You could probably put that in there and just kind of tighten that up lightly for it to stay in place, but it's still going to pop out. The biggest piece I'd like to see be made available on these columns is this collar system right here. The reason for it is, if you'll look at this one carefully, you'll see that this hole on the bottom side of the collar is elongated. Now, oddly enough, for the earlier cars, and we're getting some rain right now, so you're going to have to kind of bear with me on this. On the earlier columns, you have the manual shift 3-speed collar available all the way up through 67, but nobody has thoughtfully gone in and made the collar for the automatic available, and they still suffer from some of the same problems that the other ones do. They have this problem of wallowing out this hole. Now, one of the things you could do is to find somebody that can aluminum weld, have them weld that hole shut, and rebore the hole position to make a nice tight shift, because otherwise you're going to have to hunt one up that's new old stock, or find one that's decent enough that's not been abused so badly. This piece, which is kind of a gold piece, because this is something that's the Mustangs as well as the Fairlanes. This piece is not available that I know of in the aftermarket quite yet. And this basically is what holds your wiring sleeve right here in place. Now, I know this wiring harness looks pretty bad. I wouldn't use this one, but this is just a spare I have for things like my column shift light. I'll keep these harnesses around to be able to pick things off of them, because like I said, a lot of this stuff just isn't available. So this isn't available yet. I'd love to see it in the aftermarket, so we're hoping that someday soon that will come out. The collar pieces, not available. The tube assemblies, not available. The thing about it is the tube assemblies are fairly easy to find even now. You're just going to have to go into the used market to get these. Also not available is the shift arm. The handle at the very top is available aftermarket, but it doesn't really quite match the original. The shape up here in the bell is just a little bit different, but this piece is available, but the whole thing is not. And typically what happens is these will get pretty rusty. This one's actually in really nice shape. It's as nice as the one that I already have in the car, but finding one in really nice shape can be a real problem. You may end up having to take this one and get it replated. Also, the other problem is that the pawl inside can get worn down from shifter use. But let's move over to the tabletop behind me. I'm going to show you how to go in and put one of these collars back together, because it's a little trickier than you might think. All right, so I'm at the bench vise. We finally have our bench vise put on. You don't understand. If you're watching this way on down the road, we have been struggling with trying to get everything put together. I'm going to go over a couple of things inside of here that were kind of interesting about what they did in 1968. 1967 on back, when you put a turn signal system in there, it was a real pain in the butt. In 1968, Ford, they put a big opening right here in the bottom of the turn signal system, even gave you a little hole to be able to get up in here and muck it around if you needed to. Plus that cover that I showed you just a minute ago, all that stuff served to make putting a turn signal switch easier in these. And conveniently, as far as I know, there are no turn signal switches available for the 69 Fairlane. Probably something someone should work on. I will look into that and make sure I'm right about it, but I'm pretty sure there are no turn signals available. Another thing I want to go over is that when you're putting one of these together, when you put the turn signal switch in here, these 3 screws are actually machine screws. They are not a self-tapping screw. A lot of times over time, people will do that and they'll put the self-tapping screws in here. It's supposed to be a machine screw. Another thing I would recommend doing is popping this little bad boy out of the column. It's a contained bearing, and you can go in and use something like, I'll just use synthetic grease, or even axle grease will work. Just put some grease down inside of the bearing to make the bearing a little more smooth and operational. I'm not even sure that these bearings are available now, so you might want to take pretty good care of that one if you can. All right, so now I'm going to separate the lower collar from the upper collar. It is held in with this nut and bolt assembly. I'm going to take this out so you can see it. These are kind of held in a funky way, and I use nut drivers on this. So first I'll go in with a quarter drive and break them loose if it's a column that hasn't been into before. This I've had apart, and it's basically just a parts column. And you can pop that top right off of there. Now, I'm going to take and pull the nuts off and out of here. Set this stuff aside for a second so I can show you the underside of this. You'll see that there is a collar system in here, and what happens is this, before you tighten everything up, is out far enough when it's at the edge of this collar piece that it will slip down onto the column, and then when you start tightening up the nuts and bolts, it pulls that into the upper part of the column in here, and right here, and that tightens this piece up into position. And it's really just that simple. Now I'm going to have to get my little grabby tool here. I'm going to grab this one and use it and get the bolt out of there. But you'll want to have the collar sitting up like it is here. Now this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier too, is that grab right there. This piece can get worn down on these columns. You can see how loose this one is. It has some of the problems with the hole being wallowed out on it, so the column sits really loose. But this tab too can also be an issue because this is what selects the position for the shifter on your column shift. Now, what I'm going to do is try to put this back together. And what you'll want to do is you want to have those bolts in position. I'm going to put this one back in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my fingers to hold them in place. And I'm going to start the nuts on here. Not all the way on, because if you put them all the way on, again, it won't seat correctly. You'll notice, I don't know if you can see this, but both of these nuts and bolt assemblies, when they're like this, you'll see that they're kind of moved out. I'm going to push these back down. Now with these back down, you can take and push them over to the side, find your position, and actually pull them out to the side. The fun part is trying to figure out how to get everybody aligned correctly. Okay, that's the position. Now I'm going to try it and see if I've got them in place. The reason I like to use a nut driver is I can put some side position or side force on it to hopefully get that to go into place. Go the opposite way on this one. What do you know? I actually managed to get it to sit. All right. That looks like it's about right. And that's good and stable. So that's how you put the column top piece back on. This one is busted down inside of here, so I can't show you how to have that stay up where it's supposed to. But your collar distance should be about right where this is here on your column. And that's it. That's basically how you put the top piece back in. Like I said, putting the turn signal switch in one of these is so much easier than it is on the earlier cars. It's unbelievable. All right, so that's our show for this week. Do me a favor and go check out our Patreon account at the $10 a month level. You get monthly meetings with me on Zoom. We all get together. There's a bunch of people that come in. We do tech Q&A. It's a lot of fun. People that are parading up next to me here are the guys that have put their money where their mouth is, where Patreon is concerned. They believe enough in the show that they're supporting the show and helping pay people like Andrew and the guy who's working with me today, which is my stepson Jackson. He's our up-and-comer here at the show. Now, also, when you join up, you get monthly videos from us as well. We put videos up that talk about certain little things that I want to mention that I'm only showing to the Patreon guys. Nothing against everybody else. You're getting 2 shows a week, but we also do that little special thing for the guys who are putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak. Also, subscribe to the channel. You will get notified. We're not sure how right now, other than through YouTube, because they're not doing mail outs anymore. So if you were getting your, hey, you've got a new video from Autorestomod or Manic Mechanic through emails, believe YouTube has pretty much shut that down. Now, some guys say they're still getting them. I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case for very much longer. Just make sure you check your notifications within YouTube. We will be doing a video that we'll be putting up throughout the week, sometimes this next couple weeks, explaining exactly where to find all that information on your YouTube channel that you have when you're watching us. Also, we're marching toward 100,000 subscribers. We're going to have that plaque on the wall. That's what I'm working toward as well. So we're getting really close. We're like 86,500. So please start pushing on your friends and folks that you know that watch these kind of shows. Hey, tell them that you love Autorestomod and Manic Mechanic and have them go out and take a look at it. Finally, be kind to each other, be nice to each other, be good to each other, and love on each other. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road. So, it's 40-something degrees in Studio A. Jackson is sitting behind the camera with goosebumps on his arms, and now I'm just kind of doing this so that you can have the end screen, you know, to kind of look at what we're going to be doing or whatever. You guys have a great week. I got nothing else.